From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show, including Kingdom of Nye Radio and Revolution Radio. If you want to take a listen to our archives, they are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire as it is updated daily. Tonight's show is brought to you by the Mighty Moose Beard Oil Company. It's 100% Canadian, 100% natural, taking care of beards around the world. Visit MightyMooseBeard.com. Don't forget to use promo code SOR2019 today. Let's go deep into the history of the world tonight as Dr. Heather Lynn joins us to talk about the darker side of human evolution. In the cavernous lower levels of museums around the world, thousands of artifacts are hidden from public view because they are considered too taboo, too threatening to the established historical narrative. Meanwhile, secret archaeological excavations are routinely funded by shadowy organizations and multinational corporations. What is going on? What are they hiding? Popular beliefs range from the mundane to the fantastic. Evidence of giants? How about extraterrestrials? Ancient technology? Dr. Heather Lynn's website is drheatherlynn.com. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, I will bring you the SOR Newswire, brought to you by Paranoia Magazine. Dr. Heather Lynn, what a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio tonight. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I am very well. Now, I'm going to kick this thing off because you have a beautiful mane of hair. You really do.
Thank you.
It really,
I don't know what to say. I'm blushing.
No, I'm gonna get into that right now because we like a good head of hair around here. We really do. And my hair is down right now because I had to compete with you tonight in order to be prepared for this show. Now, Bart L from lgab.com, Bart Bowie all the way, praise be, whatever you want to say. I love the man. He is also our host on Kingdom of Nye Radio, which we really appreciate, KONR.com, KingdomofNyeRadio.com, if you want to check it on out. And he was like, Dave, you have to get Dr. Heather Lynn on the air. She's amazing. She's going to be one of the better guests you've ever had on the show. And then I saw your hair, and I'm like, this girl's got game. This girl's got real big game, and I got to be prepared. So thank you so much for coming on the show tonight.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the very nice introduction. You seriously have me blushing. I don't generally go on shows to talk about my hair. I talk about academia and whatnot, of course, and so I'm a little flustered, so thank you. Thank you very much. It was very nice.
Well, the hair is important. You know, we always need a good mane. We always need a good mane. So, I want to say, I'm not an archaeological kind of guy. I don't know a lot about this. But as I was reading up on you and what you study and what you get into, it is so interesting that we have these things going on right under our noses. And we're going to dig deep into this tonight. But first, I want the audience to get to know you a little bit. What made you fall in love with history and archaeology?
That's a good question. I actually hated history. I hated history with a passion when I was in school. I was a musician and I played the French horn and I, was a singer and that sort of thing. And so I thought I was going to be a music teacher and I thought wrong. So I actually have a rather interesting background, perhaps, maybe not conventional. I left home at 16 years old. I had a very, not a fun upbringing. So I thought, I'm flying the coop here. I did really well in school, but I thought, you know what, nothing here for me. I'm just going to go. And I took off and I traveled the country and I just, was rebellious, I guess. And so I didn't really do the traditional thing where I went to high school and then, college and I was set up and no. I went off and had I joke that my gap year was pretty much high school. And so I didn't finish my sophomore year, went off, ran away, had all kinds of adventures. I studied in different temples and churches and places of worship because I was fascinated with the idea of religion and what people thought. And so I did sort of ethnography before I even knew what I was doing. And so finally, after I settled down a bit, I ended up going back to school, and I went to community college. I bootstrapped it, and I went to do the basic things you'd think you'd do when you're in that situation, when you want to better yourself and better your life. And I studied the traditional things, like just general studies, and I thought, well, maybe I'll take business, or, I wasn't really sure. I knew what I loved. I knew that I had a passion for learning, but I didn't know how that would really translate in sort of a degree or anything like that until I got involved in art history, and then I took some archaeology classes, and I just went for it. I thought, this is really what I've wanted to do since I was really, really little, and now is the chance. And well, so what if it's not as employable as something in business or what have you? I'm just going to go for it, and you live once, right? And so from my associates, I went on bachelor's and master's and doctorates, et cetera, and I won't bore people with all the pretentious details, but I did pretty much work my way up through it, one step at a time. And I think because of that, I came in with a very different outlook on the whole idea of education and what it could do, what it couldn't do, and the world of academia in general. I went in kind of wide-eyed and hopeful, and I came out a little jaded, not terribly. I still believe in education. I would never suggest that people don't get educated. I simply think that now we're living in an era where we have the academic industrial complex, and things are a lot more, murky. They're a little murkier than they once were. So with that said, I went through school and started seeing that there was a lot of weird things and corruptions, and I guess I just, I think I just rebelled against that as well. I was never rebellious in the sense that I didn't do the right thing. I always followed the rules and that sort of thing, but I just wasn't easy to hide out and say, okay, you're going to do this. Nobody could break my spirit. And so even then, when I'm deep into my studies and I'm coming across these different classes. For instance, I often tell the story of my first archaeology class. I go in there, and on the board there are names of some particular authors. And our first assignment, right after we got our syllabus, was we were going to debunk these particular authors. And on that board, I saw names of authors that I, had been reading at one point or another and that I respected. And maybe I didn't agree with all of their theories, but I was interested in them and they were familiar. And so the idea of debunking them right away before we had any kind of tools at our disposal, really, we were just entering the class. I thought, well, okay, that's what we're doing. That's fine. I can see the value in that. However, when it was told to us why we were doing it, that's when it started to maybe have a red flag. So it was actually said on multiple occasions that it's important to do this sort of thing and attack non-credentialed or armchair historians, archaeologists, or anybody who does pseudo-archaeology, as they call it. We should attack them, and doing so, it keeps, the credibility within those who are credentialed. It's sort of just an offensive thing. And I guess that just didn't stick well with me. I understand it logically, but it just, I'm the kind of person that just didn't sit well with. And so, I followed along. I did what I was supposed to. But there were all of these different ways that I saw just an industry that I didn't appreciate, where there's a lot of hypocrisy, a lot of money flowing around, and a lot of jaded people, a lot of cynical people. And it just, I had a passion and a love for our past. Like I said, in school, I didn't like history, and I think that primarily has to do with the way that it's taught in high school and in elementary school, and it differs through different countries, but here in the States especially, they really have an emphasis on rote memorization. So that wasn't something I was interested in, just what happened, what date, and where, and how, and why. It was very boring. So I didn't realize how much I loved history until really looking back on it. I remember being, a kid, and next door was an old house that I was convinced was haunted. And I would look at it all the time and say, this thing is haunted. I wasn't allowed over there because I was young and it was abandoned, and it was, no, you don't go over there. So of course I thought, there's proof that it's haunted. Then they tore it down, and they left the foundation and a bunch of debris. And I thought, wow, now I'm going to go over there and excavate. So I'd go over there, and much to my mother's dismay, of course, and try to avoid having to get a tetanus shot, picking through all the old things, trying to find evidence that this thing was haunted. It's quite silly, but it was kind of an early thing for me. So I've always had a fascination with our past and with maybe more unusual aspects of our past. And that really was instilled in me when I had that time between high school and college, when I traveled around the country, because what I did in meeting all of the people, I heard a lot of stories. And it was fascinating. A big part of my journey was late night radio. So I lived in my car, for instance, and I drove, and I would spend a lot of time listening to this late night radio. And it was all I had, because if you're a teenager, and if anybody's listening who's a teenager and having ideas about maybe leaving, I'm just going to say this: it sounds like a good idea. And then it ends up not being a good idea because, you're impulsive and you go out and you're like, wait a minute, I'm going to have to do something here. And so basically I ended up homeless. That's really what it comes down to. And so I lived in my car, and that was not a very glamorous or happy time. And so something that really got me through that was listening to, late night paranormal radio. And it was
Art Bell.
Art Bell all the way. And it was
Absolutely.
Something that, it kept me company, but it also sparked that interest in me, and I just held on to that. And so, I had a weird, unusual way of going through it, but so long story long, I think that's probably what has led me down this more unconventional path towards the ancient mysteries aspect of history.
Art Bell was such an important cog to what we all do around here, whether it's what you're doing these days, whether it's what I'm doing. I remember sitting in my newsroom, walking out of the studio into the newsroom, and Art Bell was played on another station in Vancouver. And here we were cranking up to see what Art was talking about that night, to see how much woo we could actually find. And up here in Canada, he was it. That was it. It was Art Bell. And you had that familiar, deep, freaky voice who took you home at night. I remember driving home from Vancouver. I lived about an hour and a half out of town, or out of the city, and that whole hour and a half, it was all about ghosts. It was all about EVPs, Sasquatch, aliens, Area 51. I absolutely adored it. And the one thing I always try and tell people about radio here, the worst part about paranormal radio is Art Bell came first. He nationalized it, he internationalized it, and when you have the best come first out of the gate, it's a really, really large step up to second. You know what I'm saying? There will never be another number one. And, the way we have all been able to bond because of him and grow as people because of him, I mean, it's just amazing. I love hearing those stories.
It is amazing. And I, It's been a full circle experience for me, from going to literally living in my car as an uneducated runaway teenager, listening to these far out stories and hearing these very interesting people and thinking, wow, just to be able to talk to the people who have those kinds of interesting stories and whatnot. And then, after a long journey through academia and other personal ventures, I find myself on the other end of that. And so it's really come full circle for me, and I couldn't be more appreciative. And so I think that's probably, one of the reasons a lot of mainstreamers don't quite care for me, because I didn't take a conventional way, and all the way through, I saw a lot of people who, just had a lot of things handed to them, and they had a very different outlook on the world than I did and still do. And so, so I guess I'm a renegade for that purpose.
Well, we literally, we have to up the woo bar here a little bit, because Bart L. has told me tonight, praise be, by the way, that we literally are getting into some serious woo here tonight, and I'm looking forward to it. Now, with your studies, when did you start taking the darker side of archaeology, history, ancient aliens, extraterrestrials, and so forth a little bit more seriously. Was there a first story or a first piece of information that made you jump down the rabbit hole?
Not particularly. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to watch all those television shows. Like, I was a big fan of Unsolved Mysteries and Sightings and, reruns of In Search Of. And so it ran the gamut. I was always interested in those sorts of ancient mysteries. But it really wasn't until I started reading more and, going to school and taking some of the classes and looking at things in that regard, and then having, a little bit of a gut check moment, like, well, maybe I want to look into these theories a little bit more, because what I was doing through education was getting the tools necessary to be able to, weed out the good from the bad information, or look at sources differently. And I thought, what I'll do with that skill set is use it for alternative research. And so, in trying to do that, I ended up getting a little bit frustrated and felt a little bit of a creative block. And so I ended up emailing Michael Cremo, the author of Forbidden Archaeology, co-author. And I sort of put it out there to him and said, I'm just really not sure if I should be going through this, or maybe I just need to, be an independent researcher and go for it on my own. And, he gave me some really good advice that, he didn't tell me exactly what to do, thankfully. He really gave me responsible advice, in that moment where I was on the ledge. He said, I could either stay in academia and push the envelope ever so slightly, or I could leave, and do bigger things. But the problem is, if I do that, that I won't have the same information, the same skill set, et cetera, possibly. But if I stayed in academia, I would still only be able to push the envelope ever so slightly. So, he kind of just gave me, some more information. But just the fact that he responded to my email was enough to get me inspired. And so from that moment, I thought, what I'll do is I'll stay in the system and I'll just kind of be a double agent. I'll just take this information and do what I can with it. So when I left, I really thought I was going to go into teaching. And so I started doing that a little bit. I started working for an archaeological research, community research group, and I was doing grant writing and that sort of thing. Pretty mundane. Worked for some historical societies. And then, I was dabbling in just general research. And I had a Facebook page, and I was putting some of my research out just a little bit. And there was a day, and it was 2013, I believe it was, in March, actually. Somebody emailed me because they had seen that I was, in a lot of groups and I was posting a lot of information. They emailed me and told me about a site that was currently being excavated near the Mesopotamian city of Ur, and what is now modern-day Iraq. And they said that there was a huge excavation going on and that people were carrying out bags of artifacts, and they asked me for help, and they were very upset. And I thought, well, I don't know how I can help. I'm sitting here in Ohio. So I look into it a little more. I thought, well, surely if something that big is going on, there's probably some news about it. And so I looked around and I found that, there was a press release that came out about a place called Tel Khyber. And yes, they were doing an excavation, and it was a really, big deal. Yet there was just this one little press release, and it went out to a few other, news agencies that picked it up and published it. But it was a big deal because it was the first foreign excavation at the site in southern Iraq since the 1930s. And the last one being, the last major excavation being actually at Ur, conducted by a British-American team led by Sir Charles Woolley, who, is very famous in the field of Sumerology, Assyriology, and whatnot. So it was a really big deal. And I thought, well, isn't that interesting? And so I looked into it a little bit further. And I thought, what I'll do is I'll just contact the university and see if I can get an interview. And, I thought my Facebook followers would find it interesting. And that's when it did get interesting. I started finding out that it was things weren't quite as they appeared. And so I initially had some great contacts at the university, and then once they started to find out a little more about me and maybe, that I was looking at things in an alternative fashion, I was shut down immediately. I had an interview scheduled, and then they said, no, we've canceled the interview. And I thought, well, this is strange because this isn't that controversial of a site. Yes, it's in a controversial, area possibly, but the site itself shouldn't be something not to discuss. And so that piqued my curiosity even further. So I started doing, the follow the evidence. I followed the money, and that led me down a whole host of new inquiries. And what I ended up finding out was that this particular excavation was being funded by big oil companies, one in particular, as well as different organizations, global bankers, and one particular individual who was is an antiquities collector. And so I saw all this, and I thought, this is really, I think, a conflict of interest. But the more I started studying it, I found that there was this whole system in place where, these organizations and the individuals who, in my mind, had a conflict of interest, they would give a lot of money to a foundation. That foundation would then give a lot of money to the university. The university would then put that money into the individual, departments within the university. Those departments would then pay the archaeologists. So you have this huge line of, compartmentalization where the people on the ground who are actually doing the work, they think they know where the money's coming from, but there's a lot of ways that can be hidden. And I thought that just didn't sit well with me because I thought there should be more transparency. So especially with, call it conspiracy theory, but to me, if there's an antiquities dealer who is their collection is said to rival that of the Queen of England, to me, I don't know that I would want the university system, getting their money from them and then making their reports and then going and giving those reports solely to them, which is what they did. They would give briefings and, PowerPoint presentations and whole site reports to people in a closed door meeting at the company to these stakeholders. And I thought, well, what if they find something magnificent? Are they, how are we to know if this person isn't going to take it and have it in their living room? And meanwhile, the museums just get the pot shards and then there you have it. And so I started exposing that in one of my works, and it just snowballed from there. And so I think that was the first rabbit hole that I really stumbled upon and dove into. Not quite as fantastic maybe as something, Stonehenge or, what have you. But it was something that to me was fundamentally important because it speaks to the heart of what is wrong. And so right there is the problem. If you have a foundation of secrecy, then all these other things, it just makes it so that, how can we trust the information that is coming out of universities when they say, hey, don't listen to the research coming from, writers like Graham Hancock or,
right.
That. And so that's sort of how I got started.
Very interesting. Dr. Heather Lynn is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Dr. Heather, I'm going to get you to take a break here as well because we are going to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Dr. Heather Lynn's website is drheatherlynn.com. What you want to do is go on there. You can check out her books, check out her research, see her incredible hair on her photos. We're going to get more into the dark side of archaeology and history. Why are they holding back from mankind? Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. Hey, Spaced Out Radio listeners, it's Dave Scott. I want you to check out a great documentary I'm involved in called Beyond the Spectrum, Mosson's UFO Files. Directed by Darcy Weir, the film follows Jaime Mosson's journey for mainstream journalistic truth in ufology in Mexico. Beyond the Spectrum can be found on Amazon Prime. If you're a member, watch it free. It's worth the watch. Come get spooked at the 4th Annual Forest Moon Paracon in Cedar-Woolley, Washington, Saturday, September 28th. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot. Speakers include Mike Morin and Jason Jordan, R. Keith Andrews, and Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and so much more. There will be workshops and a VIP roundtable. Get early bird tickets now at fmparacon.com.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Looking for the stories of the strange and weird that you will find hard to find anywhere else? Check out the SOR Newswire on our website. Our writers, led by Captain Shirk, are scouring the world for the oddest and most bizarre stories we can find. Everything from weird crime to suspenseful and paranormal. We're working hard for you to bring you the most intriguing news of your day. Check out the SOR Newswire at spacedoutradio.com today.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacy, head of the Research Association, TESA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you'll be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for a night on the town? The Moose Vancouver is the bar that never stops rocking until 2 a.m. every night. The Moose has great food with everything on the menu from $6.95 to $8.95. Fantastic, vibrant staff and rock and roll that will bring you back to when the music was real, the hair was long, and the guitars were rocking. Get your party on at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Every night on Spaced Out Radio, we have places for you to hang out. Hi, this is Carl. Join our SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook for live chat. On Twitter, using hashtag Spaced Out Radio, you can also join us in our Spreaker chat room. Check us out on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR. All of our archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. By the way, I'll be watching you at your window until you do. Bye!
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Coming soon to our website, spacedoutradio.com, is the SOR Space Travelers Club. For just $5 a month, you can get into a private area on our site where you can hang with other listeners in our chat room, post in our forum, and check out a bunch of exclusive content and store that won't be found anywhere else, including a nightly after-show party with Dave. It's going to be the best $5 a month you're going to spend. The SOR Space Travelers, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Coming up this September 21st and 22nd, all UFO eyes will be focused on Toronto for the 4th Annual Alien Cosmic Expo. Come listen to some of the biggest names and experiencers in ufology. Travis Walton, Paul Hellyer, Richard Dolan, Paula Harris, Grant Cameron, Randy Kramer, and Spaced Out Radio's own Dave Scott. Tickets are on sale now at aliencosmicexpo.com.
Welcome back to the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters, proud to announce that the mosquitoes have officially died off. I can officially open the window to the studio now, which is nice. See if any gnomes will poke their head in. Hopefully. We'll see if it happens. Hey, I want to remind all of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, you can always go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire, which is updated daily. Tonight we are talking evil archaeology. Yes, evil. Dr. Heather Lynn is with us. She has been doing a plethora of research into this subject over the years, and there's a bunch of hidden gems that she has uncovered. Dr. Heather Lynn's website is drheatherlynn.com. Welcome back, Doc.
Thank you.
As you started to uncover some of these questions that you had regarding archaeological digs not matching up with history, what made you decide that you had to be the person to step up and look into why there was this cover-up? And what did you find?
Well, I don't know why I felt I had to do it. I just felt the need to do it. I got the call. I'm very curious, and so if somebody's giving me breadcrumbs, I keep following it, and sometimes, sometimes it's very naive, and I've come across those situations too, but I just am very passionate about learning and getting information. And so I don't think it was any sort of sense of, delusions of grandeur or anything like heroic on my part. I think it was simply I was just really dying to know what's going on here. Why are they hiding this? And so the more somebody keeps information away from me, the more I want to know. And so I just kept following, all the different trails, the money trails. And so that alone was interesting to see that, all of this was being hidden in a lot of ways. And I thought there's many reasons it could be hidden. But then I thought, what is it exactly are they looking for that would make it so important to spend this much money? We're talking millions of dollars it costs to, excavate. And the only thing they put out was a little press release. And this was, like I said, in 2013. And since then, they've been back multiple times. And, with varying levels of transparency, I know that I got to them because I read some of the press releases or the discussions between them, or even some of their public posts about how I was being a nuisance, and it made them have to put on a PR front for everybody and start, having a Facebook page and posting things regularly, which I thought was a great victory because I think that's what they should be doing to begin with. However, it just, it wasn't the archaeologist. This is something that's very important, I think, to say. It's not the people on the ground actually doing the work. It's other things. Like when you say what are they hiding? It's not the archaeologist. It's the upper levels, and so what are they hiding? And that's something that I just thought, there could be anything. And so a lot of people started asking me, well, what do you think? Do you think it could be giants? Do you think it could be, of course, aliens, or just a lot of different theories? And I thought, well, I don't know, let's see, and so I'm one of those people that I just, I'm not going to just write it off just because it sounds outlandish. I'm interested, and it's interesting, and I don't know everything. I'm agnostic about most things. I feel like, well, it's worth looking into for anything, just at least to, rule it out. So I think everything should be given a fair shot. So I started entertaining a lot of ideas that others had and researching things in, a direction that wasn't necessarily based in financing so much as it was based in the motivations of what are they looking for. And at that point, that's when I realized, after even more, at this point, between research and contacts I had been making and interviews with people, I found that there was a very dark side to a lot of this, and it was very strange as well. And all I can explain is, if anyone is familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, this is how I explain it to myself. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is, this pyramid where, the bottom of the pyramid, your needs are the oxygen and food and water, etc. And as you go up that pyramid, you start needing, once you have those needs met, you need the next thing. You need shelter, you need, relationships and love and friendship. And, you go all the way up until once you have everything, once you have it all, there's a little bit on the top of self-actualization. And that's when things can sometimes tend to get a little weird. Sometimes not. Sometimes it's, people do amazing things. They're philanthropic and it's just, excellent. But sometimes it gets really wacky. And so I like to say that, when you're poor and you have crazy ideas, you're just crazy. But if you're wealthy and you have crazy ideas, well, then you're eccentric. Then it's okay. And so that's something that I found a lot of the time, where you have a lot of these people who are in these very high positions. They make a lot of money, they have a lot of power and have a lot of influence, and they hold some ideas that may seem very out there. And they're not so much, different than the things you may hear on late night radio or what you may read about. And so that in and of itself is interesting to me. So if the question is, well, are they looking for stargates, for instance? I would have to say, yes, they are. Now, does that mean I'm saying there are stargates out there? Not necessarily. But what I'm saying is that there are people who spend millions and millions of dollars to look for these things. And it's no different than what the Nazis did, when they spent a lot of money, a lot of resources and energy looking for magical artifacts. And these things still go on today. And the biggest, I would say, trend right now within those circles is finding Sumerian artifacts. And the Sumerian artifacts, I think, because they're some of the oldest, and there's this question of human origin that's linked to it, and a question of how that could relate to what they would consider a ruling class. So a lot of times they like to try to associate themselves with the bloodlines of the kings, the Sumerian kings. And so, right. And yes, it sounds wacky, but it's going on. And people say, no, it's not. I can say, read my reports, do the research. You will find that, yes, there's a lot of things going on, and there's a lot of, it's not all that it seems. We'll just say that.
Well, I do want to ask you, in regards to these Illuminati type groups, or these religious type groups that are holding back on what history is all about. Have you ever talked to anybody who has told you the purpose of this being done?
Yes, that's really difficult to get into, because it's like one of those things where if I say, well, my sources say, then it just sounds really, oh yeah, your sources, well, who? But if I name the names, then it's a really tricky spot. So I'll just have to say, I'll just have to put it out there, and whoever's listening can make of it what they will. But according to the people I speak to and have spoken with, the reasons for this really do come down to a couple of, well, there's a lot of different reasons, but there are intersections. There are ways that they sort of, intersect. And so of those varied reasons, the one that most often comes up is this idea of there are beings They're off-world beings. They believe that there are these off-world or otherworldly beings, and that these beings have been with us for a long time. And they have great information. They have, then by information, I mean technological information. And what they do is they hand it down to humans, select humans who are able to then contact them through channeling. And this is where it gets a little weird, because some groups say it's through different forms of meditation. Other groups say it's through uses of things like DMT or psychedelics, specific psychedelics. Other groups say it can be both. But it's the similar sort of idea, that the idea is that there are these other beings that are channeling in through them, giving them technology, giving them power. And what their role is then at that point is to establish a, I hate to be cliche, but a new world order, that they want to do this sort of thing, and not necessarily in a political sense. And that's the thing. It's not necessarily political. It becomes political, but what it's really starting as is a spiritual thing. It's sort of a type of religion to these people. And there's so much more to it, but those are the basic unifying principles. And like I said, each group kind of goes a little wackier with, the way they look at it, or who they think they're contacting, or how they're doing it. But, I think that's pretty much it. It's a quest for power. From my perspective, it's because they have everything they need, and now they're looking for more. Which is why most people that, don't have their positions, they're maybe not looking for this. They're trying to just live their lives.
Right. And I understand that, and I can appreciate it. But I guess the problem that I have with fully respecting the research is the fact that, to me, it, and probably many other listeners out there, it doesn't make sense, unless it's for complete human control, to erase history the way it happened. Now, if you want to get into biblically speaking, we all know that the King James Version of the Bible is not the original Bible. It's been edited down over the centuries and so on and so forth. But if you go beyond biblical terms, going back to the Egyptians or even further, it's hard for me to fathom that they would try and cover up alien beings, whether it's from Zeta Reticuli, or whether it's from Orion's belt, and it's the Pleiadians versus the Arcturians versus, the Andromedans, and so on and so forth. I mean, we could go
and the blue
all over that.
chickens and the
Oh yes, because you always need a sprinkle of the blue chickens around here. You definitely need that. But to me, it doesn't make sense as to why they would shield the entire human course for centuries and I guess millennia now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that the idea is if you erase, we're erasing the past now, and this is something that's been done frequently. I mean, if you look at a lot of it, hieroglyphics, they'll be scratched out or painted over, and those weren't done by modern day vandals. They'd be done by people in those times. The idea of erasing the past, or it's not a new idea. And so archaeology and history is an area where people really can get together and get excited about, who they are. Discoveries and that sense of past can become a source of pride and unity through a recognition of a shared heritage. And so archaeology, history, and that sort of thing, it really can bring people together. It can also tear them apart. And so there's a powerful connection that people have to their cultural resources and their history. And it is, often seen as a threat, and it has been through history, and it's really not much different today. It's the idea that, if you systematically erase the past, then you can control the future. And George Orwell has a great quote on that I love. It's, "He who controls the past controls the future, and he who controls the present controls the past." And so I think that's really, what it has to do with, and maybe the motivation behind it.
So what are we finding? What is being hidden right now?
Again, there's a lot of speculation. And so I think from what I've discovered, people will say giants. Yes, the Smithsonian has had bones and different things that, don't fit into the mainstream narrative. But then what you have is people who will go off into another field with that and say, well, then they had to be, 30 feet tall, and they're Jack and the Beanstalk, and look at these, images I found online, therefore it proves. And so it's, really difficult to say exactly, what. But from my research, I found that the number one thing that's being hidden, if you will, is the information in cuneiform tablets. And this is another weird spot, because if anyone's familiar with the cuneiform tablets, there's sets of tablets that have been written 4,000 years ago by the Sumerians and then later Assyrians and Babylonians. But the Sumerians, who were just noted for their record keeping, they wrote everything down on these tablets. And in fact, they had medical textbooks, some of which I've used for my research in evil archaeology. They were very educated, and they believed in education. So a lot of the cuneiform tablets are textbooks, which is very beneficial for people who study that, because then they can see, their train of thinking and what knowledge they had and how they were teaching it. So a lot of information there. So there's all of this information. And then you have only a few people who are able to truly translate those tablets. And then you have Zechariah Sitchin, who comes out in, I think, the 70s or 80s, and he said that he could read these tablets, and he had a background in Hebrew, and so, he read the tablets and interpreted them in such a way that made sense to him. And then he proposed a theory of human origin that was based on an idea of the Anunnaki, the gods of Sumer, being the sort of genetic manipulators of mankind and therefore our creators. And so a lot of your audience will be familiar with this. Some may not, but that's it in a nutshell. Now, the problem with his interpretations, a lot of people say, well, he didn't actually know how to read the tablets, and there's these discrepancies, and that he was able to read the tablets. I don't believe for a minute that he couldn't. I think that it's more about his interpretation that people leave a question, because some of his books were nonfiction, while most of them were actually novels. And so then you'll have a lot of people who conflate what's the fiction and the fact, and I don't think that did his research a great service, making it so easy to conflate that information. But because it was so groundbreaking, because he really put it in the forefront, what we had before that was Egyptomania. Everybody's interested in ancient Egypt, but very little was popularly known about the Sumerians. He comes out with this information, and it's just amazing, and it's fascinating, and it has this wonderful narrative, and it explains so much. And it also coincided with, the Von Daniken and Chariots of the Gods, and this whole push towards paleo contact or ancient aliens. And so what the problem, though, is since then is it's been as though the field is in a state of suspended animation, because you have his work, and it was so enormous that a lot of people haven't really built upon that, with the exception of people who are outwardly trying to debunk it. In the meantime, you have actual academics who study Assyriology, and they are still, actually reading these tablets, because it is a misnomer that people can't read these. There are a lot of people who can read these. In fact, you can go online and look and find the dictionary, the translations. You can learn how to read it yourself. It's really not as hidden necessarily as it would appear. And so there's a lot of confusion, I guess, if you say that. And I think that it really has to do with the cult of personality aspect of how this has gone. If you disagree with Sitchin in any way, shape, or form, it's as though, oh no, then that's, you can't have that. But then if you agree with him on everything, and then there's discrepancies that are clear, then it's like, well, okay, you just are a Sitchinite. And I think that's the problem, is that it's not being looked at as with the critical eye that it needs to be. And so that's a big part of it there. In the meantime, there are people who are actually studying these, people who are collecting these, and there's volumes and volumes of information on these. These tablets, when I say these, it just means in general, because, we're talking hundreds of thousands of tablets, so many of them, and they're very well preserved. Some are in museums, some are still buried, some are just, they're sitting around, and they just have more tablets than they have people who can translate them. And so there's so much information in this, and a lot of the information that was in the Sumerian tablets would end up being the biblical stories we know today. So the first accounts of, the Great Flood. And so it's really vital information. It's the oldest that we have, and a lot of people are very interested in it. And a lot of it is actively hidden. And that's interesting and intriguing to me as well. And I have a book coming out maybe a couple more months. I'm not sure when the publisher's putting it out, but it's called The Anunnaki Connection. And in that, I do go through a lot of the tablets that are lesser known or not known, and I kind of bring some of that information to the front because, like I said, it's in a state of suspended animation, and a lot of people just, stick to the Sitchin stuff or just debunk Sitchin and then leave it alone. Meantime, there are so many tablets that have been discovered, and more of that information is available, and some of it is not. And so I think there's more to be researched there, and I would hope that more people would start to research it. Let's just say that.
Dr. Heather Lynn is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We have about 3 minutes before we're going to go to break at the top of the hour. Why is this important? Why is it important to look for these hidden gems that could still be unearthed? Why is it important to go after the dinosaur bones? Why is it important for all of us, the way society is changing so rapidly every minute, that we need to be studying how the wool has been pulled over our eyes in the past?
Well, that's a good question. I think, for one thing, it's about having access to the truth and being able to, understand our past and who we are. I think it has to do with identity. And, Galileo said, all truths are easy to understand once they are discovered. The point is to discover them. And so discovery is a very important part of understanding the truth, whether it be about our past or our present or anything. And so when it comes to particularly artifacts, they're referred to as cultural material, cultural objects, because they represent so much more than just a thing. They represent they hold the human consciousness, really. I mean, an object can hold so much information, and so it's very important, and it really does come down to, I think, identity. And when you take that away, you rob a culture of its identity, and without that, social cohesion can start to dissolve, and we see that more and more these days. And what happens in that sense is when people are more easily homogenized, they are more easily controlled. And this is something we see as a cycle through history over and over again. And so, I think it's not only important for human identity, but, in a practical sense, too, if people don't care about that lofty goal, the discoveries in economically challenged areas, they can actually benefit those regions. They create employment in museums, universities, archives, security, so many things. And then it attracts tourists. And so it can be a real economic boom for a lot of, different countries and developing countries. And so, there's a really practical humanitarian aspect to it. And then there's just the whole good old-fashioned human curiosity and, the fact that we really deserve to know who we are and where we came from.
We got about 30 seconds here before we got to go to break, and I would love to ask another question, but I don't think we'd have time to answer in regards to this, because as we look at humanity and as we look into the past, I think, history is one of those passing subjects that nobody seems to care about anymore. It's kind of like going into a bookstore. Very few know the feeling of a good book in your hand, rather than a Kobo or whatever the hell those things are called. It just seems to be disappearing, and it doesn't seem right. It really doesn't. We're going to get into more aliens, occult, who's controlling the real history. Dr. Heather Lynn is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Hour number 2 of XOR is next.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Come hang out with Spaced Out Radio, where we own the night. This is Carl. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and during the show, use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio to chat with us live. On Instagram, at Dave Scott SOR. On Facebook, give our page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. SOR archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. Come join us, or I will come join you. See you at your window.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot THAL. Come tune in to SOR, where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com, where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com, and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
Canada's largest UFO conference is ready to roll in Toronto this September 21st and 22nd at the Alien Cosmic Expo. This year is about the experience. Listen to the stories of Dave Scott, Travis Walton, Paula Harris, Grant Cameron, Ryan Stacey, Richard Dolan, Leslie Mitchell-Clark, and more. Get your tickets now at aliencosmicexpo.com. Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Hey fans, it's Dave Scott. Do I have something for you to check out? A great documentary about legendary Mexican investigative journalist Jaime Maussan and his search for the truth about UFOs. Beyond the Spectrum, Maussan's UFO files can be found on Amazon Prime. It's free to watch if you're a member. You might even hear me in it. So check out Beyond the Spectrum, only on Amazon Prime. The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacey, head of the Research Association, TESA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you'll be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
At spacedoutradio.com, we have a little bit of everything for you to stay up late. So while you're there, check out our SOR Newswire, where our team brings you stories of the weird and strange to the WTF from around the globe. News on Bigfoot, UFOs, paranormal, Darwinian-type crime tales. It's the stories that the mainstream media usually won't touch. Well, we got them all on the SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Come get spooked at the 4th Annual Forest Moon Paracon in Cedar-Woolley, Washington, Saturday, September 28th. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot. Speakers include Mike Morin and Jason Jordan, R. Keith Andrews, and Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and so much more. There will be workshops and a VIP roundtable. Get early bird tickets now at fmparacon.com.
We are getting ready to relaunch the SOR Space Travelers Club at spacedoutradio.com. For $5 a month, you can join us for a plethora of features found nowhere else. Hang out in a private chat room during the show and after party. You can check out some exclusive content and a store specifically for you, as well as a private listener forum where you can post your thoughts, stories, and pictures. The SOR Space Travelers Club, coming soon to spacedoutradio.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have each and every one of you listening in. Welcome back, everyone listening in on KDNF AM 1560 on Dangerfield, Texas. KDUN AM 1030 in Reedsport, Oregon. Down in Ridgecrest, California, KZFX 93.7 FM. We're on WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia, and UPRN 107.7 FM in New Orleans. On the digital side, hi to everyone listening in on Kingdom of Nye Radio and Revolution Radio. Great to have you with us. Don't forget, you can check out all of our archives for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Hysternopothia. Hysternopothia is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including reading up on the daily updated SOR Newswire put together by our news director, Captain Shirk. Dr. Heather Lynn is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We are going through evil archaeology. Is history exactly what we know? And that's what we're going to get into this hour. Dr. Heather Lynn's website is drheatherlynn.com. Heather, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Right before the break, we were talking about why pull the wool over people's eyes. Who is doing this? I asked you if it was an Illuminati type group, if it was somebody like religious types, whether it's the Vatican or other religious groups that we may or may not know about, trying to change history and maybe to control the population into the direction they want to go. How long has this been going on, and have you figured out who any of these groups actually are?
Well, this has been going on for a long time. I think that a lot of this is religious. It has a religious underpinning to it, spiritual, religious, all this sort of thing. Yes, that ends up affecting, the political landscape and geopolitical issues. But I think a lot of times the people that may have a position of power and they're, wanting to control and whatnot, I think it sometimes just comes down to that, where it gets really out there, where they're looking for, say, the Spear of Destiny, or they're looking for, Sumerian artifacts and different things of that nature. I think those tend to be cases where the people are religiously motivated. And, I've seen a lot of small groups that claim they're connected to things like the Vatican. I've seen, a lot, the Illuminati, that word is really just a tough one to get behind. The Illuminati was real. In that sense, I on my website, if you download, there's a free book that you can download, and with that, there's like a book subscription, and in that, I include another book about the Freemasons' involvement in world revolutions, so the American Revolution, the French Revolution, and even the Haitian Revolution, and in that, I sort of discuss the role of the Freemasonic ideas, and so it is true that there, were things like Freemasons, involved in revolution. There's evidence, and I include that in the work too, and including George Washington's actual handwritten letters that warn of the Illuminati. And these things, may come as a surprise to some people maybe not. It's kind of, familiar information, but I do include that in the free download, so that you can see in his own writing what he says about the Illuminati and their infiltration of Freemasonry and their intent, at the time they thought evil intent, so even then they were worried about the intentions of the group like the Illuminati. Whether or not the actual Illuminati in that sense that is originated, from that particular time is still going on today, that's kind of impossible to say. I would say no, but I don't have any evidence to suggest either way. There are people who believe that they're associated with that. Whether or not they are, I think sometimes groups form today and they have a shared ideology, and then they link it to that past, or they rename themselves that, or, carry out their function under those names and traditions. But so with that said, there's a lot of these disparate groups, and they all have an association to a lot of times religious organizations, and and a lot of times the Templars come up as that, because the Templars were actually, some of the first archaeologists in a lot of ways. They did excavations looking for artifacts, and so using archaeology as a tool of control, spiritual, religious control, that kind of thing, it's really not new at all. It goes back to at least the 12th century that we know of, and people are still doing that today in the name of things like the Templars or the Illuminati. Whether or not they are that is just, I guess, a question of perception. If you choose to believe that they are, then they are. So it's a blanketed term now. It's useful, I suppose, to say Illuminati, because it does kind of give that idea, the blanketed term. And in some ways it's not very useful, because the moment you say it, it can conjure up a lot of ideas, and then immediately you can discount whatever you're going to say next. And that's troublesome as well. So,
I was going to ask you about the role of the Vatican, the secrets that they keep, whether it's in their tunnels underneath the Vatican, whether it's in their own libraries or science labs. What role has the Vatican played in this?
A huge role, absolutely huge. And when I say this, I don't mean to bash Catholics in any way. I was actually raised a Catholic, and, but the Vatican itself, they have so much hidden. So a lot of people, understand that the Smithsonian hides things, and governments hide things, and there's all of these, but nothing compares to the Vatican in terms of what they are hiding. And they don't even, it's not even a secret. They just, if I, as a historian, want to go and research, just do general research, I'm not going to be able to do the research I would like to do, even though I have credentials and I could go in and, nope, it's off limits to me. You have to have connections. You have to be an approved Vatican historian to be able to access even some of the archives, and that's just the ones that are available. It's ridiculous. They're completely inaccessible, and I do know some people who have been able to, get a lot of information, and I know some people who are connected in a lot of different ways to get that information. But it's really shady. It's really secretive, and it's really just not straightforward. And so absolutely, it sounds like a terrible trope, but it's absolutely true. The Vatican is holding loads of information beyond what we can even comprehend. It's just, a lot of it's just, your guess is as good as mine, and a lot of it's just out there. Everything from court documents to artifacts themselves to relics, just everything.
Now, do they play a role in covering up the history before Christ?
I would say yes. I would say so, because a lot of it could conflict with the message they're trying to, put out there. So I don't have any absolute, example to really reference, but I can just say that it's my opinion that is absolutely a motivation, that the desire to preserve the narrative that they put forth is the motivating factor behind a lot of their secrecy.
Do they do it because they have 1.3 billion followers around the world, and if they allowed people to actually know what they knew in their archives, their libraries, whatever's hiding in their tunnels, that they would be maybe misguiding their own people? Can we put it that way?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. That, and I think that the people at the upper echelon, this is something you see throughout history. It echoes where the priest classes, the people at the very upper echelons, they often don't even believe their own doctrine. They're in it for a completely different reason. And so, the people in, say, middle management, they might be very religiously motivated. They want to keep preserve the narrative that they have going, and it's religious, and they have fervor and whatnot. But the people at the very top often don't even have those same religious beliefs. They're actually just using it as a tool for control. And you see that a lot in some of these offshoot groups of that are associated loosely with the Vatican, or people within the Vatican, these groups that are pushing for ecumenicism. They want to unite the Catholics or most of the Christians, but they want to unite them with people from the Muslim faith and a lot of different faiths. They actually want to unify them. And that sounds wonderful. It sounds like, peace, coexist and that sort of thing, but that's not their intention. Their intention isn't to go to, say, just the regular practicing people or secular people. They're looking for the extremists on all sides. There are people who are extremists. We hear a lot about Islamists and stuff, but there's also, extreme Christians, Catholics. We don't see as much of it necessarily, in the Americas, but in Europe, it can be really bad. And so there are a lot of these big three Abrahamic religions that have factions within them that are extremist groups. And this is something that is, I'm hesitant to say the exact names on air, but what I will do is put on my website links to all of the actual groups so that you can go on there, your listeners can go on there and link to the actual groups and see their connections to the Vatican and what they're trying to do. I will do that, and I'll put a very clear link on my website. That way anyone can look and research and check my sources. But otherwise, I'll just say what they are trying to do is unite these extremist factions, not the general people. And they want to do that because what happens when people go into an extreme way of thinking is that it becomes dictatorial. And so something that unites the idea of extreme, say, Sharia law and the extremes of, what a Catholic, very conservative kind of thinking, those things share authoritarianism. even though they don't share the same doctrines or the same traditions or the same backgrounds, they share this quest for power. And that's something that these organizations are tapping into. And these are not just your churches. These are not churches that you go to. These are not, things like that. These are groups within these organizations that are doing their own thing. And or at least they're trying to do their own thing. And this is what they're doing. They're trying to unite this so that they can have world domination. And so it's really not about yes, the Vatican's involved, but it's actually not about trying to push a Christian agenda. It's about pushing a fascist agenda, essentially. And it's really hard to maybe accept that because it just sounds so awful and so counter the organizations themselves. But these organizations that are the offshoots, they have people involved that are on the very high ends of the religious groups. I'm probably going to get a lot of trouble for saying all of this, and the people who, have. I'm not going to disclose sources right now, but I will put them on my website, and for that, I'll probably, get in a lot of trouble. But that's the risk that you take for speaking the truth. And so, again, I'm not saying that these are good things to do, or they're bad things, I'm just simply putting out there the facts as I know them. There are groups within the Vatican and other religious organizations that are trying to get together to share a goal of control. And they are using archaeological discoveries to bolster their argument for that control. And this is a very important part of it, and this is why archaeology, history is important, and yes, archaeology is really important because it deals with the actual tangible artifact, and what that represents is logos. That represents truth, an objective truth, because if I hold something tangible in my hand and I show it to you, you can see it. I can see it. Others can see it. It's a manifestation of truth. So it's a very valuable tool in propaganda. And so what you find are these organizations doing whatever they can to find artifacts that they can link to proving that, these doctrines actually are calling for this path towards a new world order. And there's very specific ones they're looking at too. So, for instance, they're looking at, certain documents that they're trying to prove were written by Muhammad that actually say we're all supposed to be together, and that he's actually Christian, and Christians are actually a lot of stuff. And some of this is probably Gnostic in origin, or we don't know really its origin. And so it's being researched, but they're putting a lot of money trying to find some sort of maybe missing link or some sort of tool that they can use to point and say, see, this was meant to be, so that they can unify the religions. And again, world peace and unity is amazing. That would be wonderful, but that's not what they're doing. That's not why they're doing it. And they're not doing it to bring together regular people, if that makes sense.
Do you think this is why we saw, just a few years ago, there was world outcry when members of ISIS were blowing up these thousands of year old giant carved Buddhist creations in the rocks in Afghanistan and in Syria and in other places of the Middle East, where they were terrorizing the history that didn't stand for Islamic law back in those countries. Mm-hmm. Is that what we were seeing? It was a symbol of that type of destruction of history?
I think so. I think it is an effort to, it's kind of iconoclastic in that way. A lot of political movements will do that. They will go in and try to destroy the representation of old. This is what happened in Europe with the Christian faith, beyond Europe, but initially in Europe, what I write about in Evil Archaeology a bit is the demonization of pagan gods. And so, and that's very similar. So they destroy the idea of the nature spirits or pagan deities by literally demonizing them, by saying that these are evil demons and you're evil if you acknowledge their existence or, have statues of them or whatnot, celebrate their feasts. And so it was an important step to erase the past in order to pull in all the people to look in a particular direction that they wanted. So Yeah, that's just a more physical outburst of that. So destroying the statuary, and that's they just wanted to get rid of it.
What about ancient Egypt? We see so many people focused in on ancient Egypt, as we got about 4.5 minutes before we go to break. Dr. Heather Lynn is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We always seem to focus in on the pyramids and what happened there in the history. Are they, creations of otherworldly beings giving mankind a hand with this? Was it actually slaves who built them? There seems to be so much surrounding that because, in certain areas, there have been on the hieroglyphs of what looks to be aliens and spaceships carved into the stone. Do we overlook Egypt, or do we over abuse what that history is all about to try and bring it into today's ancient alien theory?
No, I think we do that. I think that I think there's not necessarily an either or answer, but I think there's a little bit of all of the above. I think that there's a lot of evidence to suggest that, yes, people can build the pyramids, that, there's a lot of ways they could have done it. To suggest that human beings were incapable back then of doing anything, I think is wrong to suggest that they didn't necessarily need, someone else to do something for them. However, there's a different question there at hand, too. It's one, to me, of inspiration, and it gets a little bit, out there. So if you follow me, the idea of inspiration, it comes from the Latin inspirare, which was it meant to breathe an idea into someone, and it was specifically meant about a supernatural being. So it would be a supernatural being would impart an idea into somebody, and that would inspire them. So it was in spirit. And so, as opposed to expire, so this idea, if you just think of that concept, yes, ancient people were able to do great things. And it really comes down, in my opinion, to the question of how did they come up with the ideas? Not necessarily how did they do that. Those are questions for engineers, and there's a lot of great researchers out there, doing that every day, trying to figure out, well, how did they do this? How, and it's fascinating. But I'm more interested in, I guess, the cognitive archaeological aspect of it, which is how did they get the idea? In my discipline, I've specialized in intellectual history, and so the history of ideas really appeals to me. And this is something that, I researched about ancient civilizations in general. Where do they get these ideas? Where is consciousness? When did we see this come about? And, because they say no idea is a new idea, everything's sort of derivative. And so if you follow it far back, where do these people come up with the ideas to do this? And so it's fascinating, in that regard. But the more I've studied, the more I found a lot of strange things, as you say, the idea of paleo contact, or the idea that somehow people have summoned beings, or at least have been in contact with beings who give them ideas. Whether or not they are the ones that carry it out, I think those are two different questions. So I think that there's a possibility that people have believed they are contacting beings, being inspired by, or they have muses, or what later were the daemons, and then later the demons, and sometimes angels. We have all these different terms for them. But in a sense, it's like this outer idea that comes into us, and then we, do it. So it sounds really strange, but in my work, I found that there's a lot of consistency between cross-cultural manifestations of this idea. So whether it be the 7 sages of the, Sumerians, or the Apkula, the archons of the Gnostics, the serpent gods of the East and Central America. There's the Titans of the Greeks, and Snake Brothers of the Hopi, and Jinn in Islam, and Elohim of the Old Testament, and I could go on. But they all seem to have a similar component to them, and it's that they're semi-biological entities from a different place. Sometimes they're from outer space, maybe, or sometimes they're from a shamanistic dimension. They could be, from all these different areas, but they're somehow a different place. And they share this this want or desire to impart knowledge onto man. And whether it's good or bad, I think that sometimes you can make an argument that it's not been so good. And so I think that is a roundabout answer, maybe, hopefully. Not
Perfect.
quite as clear, but...
Well, you know what? It's a great place to hop out for a break. Dr. Heather Lynn is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Evil Archaeology continues right after this. Hey, Spaced Out Radio listeners, it's Dave Scott. I want you to check out a great documentary I'm involved in called Beyond the Spectrum, Mosson's UFO Files. Directed by Darcy Weir, the film follows Jaime Mosson's journey for mainstream journalistic truth in ufology in Mexico. Beyond the Spectrum can be found on Amazon Prime. If you're a member, watch it free. It's worth the watch.
Coming up this September 21st and 22nd, all UFO eyes will be focused on Toronto for the 4th Annual Alien Cosmic Expo. Come listen to some of the biggest names and experiencers in ufology. Travis Walton, Paul Hellyer, Richard Dolan, Paula Harris, Grant Cameron, Randy Kramer, and Spaced Out Radio's own Dave Scott. Tickets are on sale now at aliencosmicexpo.com. A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch. Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for a night on the town? The Moose Vancouver is the bar that never stops rocking until 2 a.m. every night. The Moose has great food with everything on the menu from $6.95 to $8.95. Fantastic, vibrant staff and rock and roll that will bring you back to when the music was real, the hair was long, and the guitars were rocking. Get your party on at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Every night on Spaced Out Radio, we have places for you to hang out. Hi, this is Carl. Join our SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook for live chat. On Twitter, using hashtag Spaced Out Radio. You can also join us in our Spreaker chat room. Check us out on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR. All of our archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. By the way, I'll be watching you at your window until you do. Bye!
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot THAL, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Looking for the stories of the strange and weird that you will find hard to find anywhere else? Check out the SOR Newswire on our website. Our writers, led by Captain Shirk, are scouring the world for the oddest and most bizarre stories we can find. Everything from weird crime to suspenseful and paranormal. We're working hard for you to bring you the most intriguing news of your day. Check out the SOR Newswire at spacedoutradio.com today.
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacy, head of the Research Association, TESA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you'll be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
Come get spooked at the 4th Annual Forest Moon Paracon in Cedar-Woolley, Washington, Saturday, September 28th. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot. Speakers include Mike Morin and Jason Jordan, R. Keith Andrews, and Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and so much more. There will be workshops and a VIP roundtable. Get early bird tickets now at fmparacon.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Coming soon to our website, spacedoutradio.com, is the SOR Space Travelers Club. For just $5 a month, you can get into a private area on our site where you can hang with other listeners in our chat room, post in our forum, and check out a bunch of exclusive content and store that won't be found anywhere else, including a nightly after-show party with Dave. It's going to be the best $5 a month you're going to spend. The SOR Space Travelers, only at spacedoutradio.com.
We've passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, hanging out with all of you from SOR headquarters in the frozen Canadian tundra. Reminder to all of you, if you've missed portions of this show or others, you can always go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire, which is updated daily. DrHeatherLynn.com is our guest website, as Dr. Heather Lynn is here to talk ancient evil archaeology. Dr. Heather Lynn, welcome back.
Thank you.
Not a problem. Right before the break, we were talking about Egypt and some of the hieroglyphs that have what look to be aliens and spaceships on there. Do you believe that this is something that is being covered up by those who do not want to have any association with mankind's true history with extraterrestrials?
I think in some ways, yes, but I don't know that it's for any other reasons other than saving face. I think a lot of times what you'll see are, stories that come out about new discoveries, and there's some reason that people really dread rewriting the history books. And I mean, you still have people now who are adamant at saying that the Neanderthals and Homo sapiens sapiens never bred. And it's just simply not true. We have genetic evidence to suggest that and support that and actually, prove that in my mind. So to me, that there's still holdouts insisting that this didn't happen is just silly. And so it's just an example of how you have people who they just learn what they learn, they do what they do, and they don't want to really adjust to it. And I just see this all the time. And so, yes, it's like in some ways there's these grand conspiracies, I think, to hide information. But I think overall what it is just a lack of the desire to change or have to recalibrate. Because if you think about, how complex everything is, how we really have no idea what's going on. We really don't. There are so many mysteries still out there, yet people prefer to look at everything as a progression. That, you have a linear fashion and everything's getting better and better and moving forward, and we can plug pieces in. That's why we're always looking for that missing link. But there is not necessarily a missing link. There's missing links everywhere, but that doesn't feel quite as good. It doesn't wrap the whole thing up nicely and neatly in a box. And so I think really it comes down to the problem that humans have in general with the unknown, or having some of those blanks to still fill in. So yeah, I think in some regards, specific artifacts, specific situations are actively being, covered or, treated in a different way. But I think overall, the systemic problem with it has to do with disorganization, apathy, human error, and just a lot of other flaws in that sense. If you think about, the history of archaeology itself, it's really not an old profession. It's quite new, and it's not as scientific as people would like to think. It's still considered a humanity. Yes, it's a social science, but a social science is a soft science. They use methodology that's scientific, and they use a lot of scientific tools. But archaeologists don't prove things without, doubt, like, say, a physicist could. It's not as quantitative as they would like it to be, because it came from antiquarianism, which was literally a rich man's hobby. And after times started changing, and the people started saying, well, we don't really like the rich anymore, and they were under a microscope of scrutiny, and they started saying, well, we can't have these endeavors. We have to hide under the guise of having social groups that are, say, nonprofit. So they would make research organizations. So it used to be where you'd have wealthy people who had money and time on their hands and a sense of adventure. They would go out, do the excavations, bring it back to their home, have a museum in their home, invite their friends over, and that's how it was. And that's how it was not even that long ago. I mean, we're talking the 19th century. Even up into the 20th century, it was like that. But in the 20s, it started to get different. And, academia got involved, and it became more formalized. So it's still relatively new in that sense. And I think that as a result, there's a misunderstanding all around of what it actually is. And in an effort to make it look credible, and this is something that I experienced and heard firsthand, the idea is you must make it look very credible, that it's very scientific, that it's 100% sound. And it's just not. There's still a lot of room for interpretation. It's much like history in that sense, where you have to make a narrative. I took a class once called Making History. It's that whole idea that, you are creating history. A historian creates the narrative. It's your story. And so that's kind of uncomfortable for some people, but what else can you do if you don't have evidence? You just can have your interpretation of it. And yes, there's going to be flaws and holes in that, which is why you have discourse and people to argue with and back and forth. But that's the effort to try to get to a truth. But it's still not the same as doing an experiment in chemistry or biology. It's just not a hard science. And I don't mean to denigrate it, because it's something that I love, and I do believe it's scientific in nature. But it is important to distinguish that there is a difference, and that a lot of times, in an effort to prop it up as though it's an infallible sort of scientific endeavor, we don't want to question things. It's, okay, well, we find this new artifact, it's out of place artifact. We'll just not talk about it, because, the more people see how loosely put together it is, the less credibility they have as an organization, as a guild in a modern sense. And they're really suffering anyway right now. And so anthropology in general is suffering. It's declining in universities, and a lot of people aren't interested in it in the same way. And so they've had to rethink how they, do what they do and stay relevant. And so I think that in some cases, yes, people are actively hiding things. But I think for the most part, when we find an out-of-place artifact that doesn't fit into the historical narrative, it really does come down to the question of credibility. If you consider somebody that spent their whole career on one theory or one idea, and then here comes something to disprove it, that's a really hard blow to take. And so a lot of people just strive to keep their own reputation and theories intact, and the public then, they're the victims of that, if you will.
Do you believe then, just by listening to your words, I think you do, that mankind then, every person on this planet, is some sort of hybrid going back thousands of years from crossbreeding between extraterrestrials and humans?
Oh, that's a really good question. Now, I don't know about the crossbreeding in the sense that it's, the grays are coming down and then they're inseminating people. There's a lot of ways to look at it. I don't necessarily think that's the answer. Although I wouldn't rule it out. That's the thing, is I don't have enough evidence to really rule it out. And I don't think a lot of other people do. There's an interesting article. It wasn't an article. I think it was actually a paper that was published by NASA called the Silurian hypothesis. And what they did was they were looking at whether or not it would be possible to detect an industrial civilization in a geological record. The Silurian hypothesis was named after the ancient race of the subterranean intelligent reptiles from the show Doctor Who. I don't think they meant to imply they were reptilian, but you never know. But the scientists at NASA's Goddard Institute for Space Studies and along with the University of Rochester, they wanted to know whether humans were not the only advanced civilization to have existed on our planet. And so the study went on to claim that the fossil record doesn't go back further than 2.6 million years. Therefore, we couldn't really detect an ancient civilization like that. So anything earlier than 2.6 million years, wouldn't have survived in the fossil record and would already be dust by now. So everything before this time period, is just a mystery. And so that's why we really wouldn't be able to say no, that this couldn't have happened, because there's so much that we don't know. However, when you look at the strangeness of life, and you look at some of the weird anomalies in our DNA and different things, I do think that we have extraterrestrial origin in our DNA. Now, whether that came from something like panspermia or something like that, whether that life the seeds of life came in from a comet and seeded here, or whether it was directed and intentional. I mean, these are things that would be possibly impossible to find out for sure. I don't know. That's why I'm open to it. But I do personally think that we have some sort of hybrid type, aspect to us. I think that, to me, I believe that. But whether or not the narratives that people put out there can be proven, I don't see it yet. But I don't discount it. I'm still looking. I don't know if that really helps, but I'm still a truth seeker as of right now. I have some credentials or some education. I've read some stuff. I write some stuff, and I have some beliefs, but I'm kind of on this path as well. I'm just looking for those answers still. And when I find them, I will share them, and hopefully I find them.
Do you believe then, or have you come across information that may lead down that path, though? I mean, it's one thing to have assumption, Dr. Heather Lynn. Mm-hmm. It's another thing to have some sort of clue that points that this direction may be correct. Does it happen from the Mayans? Does it happen from the Aztecs, the Egyptians? Do we have to go all the way back even further?
I think that we may have to go back further. I think, but I think some of these things could survive in collective memory. We have the Sumerian texts, and they are very old, but they are also, records of the time, but a lot of them are written records of an oral tradition, much like the Vedic texts. And so we're really looking at the possibility of some of the stories being much older than they appear to be. And so when you consider that, they very well could be passing down a story that is so ancient. And yes, it has changed through time, but there could be a seed of truth there. There could be something there to follow. And then over time, it gets recorded and re-recorded. But the interesting thing too is, a lot of people would think it's like a game of telephone. The more it's recorded, the less accurate it is. And it's strange, but the studies do show that the oral history and traditions, when they're kept more sacred and more accurate than even written ones. And so a lot of times when you hear things that have been passed down in oral tradition, it's very, very accurate and trustworthy, and it's almost counterintuitive given the way we know how information spreads. But so I think that it would have to be older. But again, I don't know for sure, but I just think that it might be a lot older than even the Sumerian times. And I do think that, which would be 4,000 years ago. So roughly 4,000 years ago, people do think that, this is when humans were created by Anunnaki and this. But from the texts that I've read and from the things that I have deduced, I believe that the texts are referencing things that happened much earlier. And then what you find is they start from that and build from that. And so you have, a linear story, an evolution of the story, but that some of it is relevant to the 4,000 years ago period. But the oral tradition is what they were holding on to, which could have gone back who knows how long. And so that's why I think it's still worth looking into. And places like, Göbekli Tepe really may hold the key in finding out, well, how far back did they have this information? And, we look at writing as though it's the definitive proof of knowledge, but it's not necessarily. Oral tradition is very trustworthy, and there are a lot of cultures in the past that never wrote, but they had a rich, history, we believe, and it was just done through oral tradition. So how do we know? We don't know. And so I think it's important to keep looking as far back as possible with that research question in mind as we do.
Dr. Heather Lynn is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We got about 6.5 minutes before we have to go to break at the top of the hour. So as you look for more clues regarding this mystery, has there ever been any human DNA that has been questioned or not figured out regarding where it actually came from throughout history?
Well, I mean, yes and no. You can point to some of the, different... No, I would say, I'm just going to say no. I mean, you have controversial ones like... you see these like elongated skulls and these different things, and a lot of people point to those as, examples, and then they will say, well, we're doing a DNA analysis on it and it's showing, whatever. But I just don't think that there's enough evidence to suggest that these actually are telling us, the things that we want them to tell us. So yes, they exist. There are examples, but I just don't think that's enough. And I think a lot of times that the people involved in it, I'm not calling people out personally, but I just in general, the mystique and the interest in it kind of make it a breeding ground for, bias, at least at the bare minimum. I'll just leave it at that. So I don't know that there's really any really good example. And if there was one single example, I wouldn't even want to point to that because it's only one. And so I just don't think the evidence is strong enough yet. But there's other things. There's, a lot of researchers point to the octopus, for instance, as being a prime example of how, our DNA could have been seeded here. The idea of panspermia being done through viral means. And there's a lot of weird research going on, that looks at things like octopus, cephalopods. They have a strange, evolutionary tree, sometimes referred to as aliens, but they're very bizarre. They have very complex nervous systems, highly intelligent, and they can camouflage and do all kinds of weird tricks. But there's evidence of extensive changes in the RNA found in neural structures of octopus that, couldn't have come from just adaptations, evolutionary adaptations, because these genes are nowhere present in any primitive ancestor. So they literally just popped up out of nowhere. So these genes are they baffle people. So, they believe that they came from a far, distant past. And, so I think we'll find those answers not through direct evidence of, say, here's a skull or a body or what have you. But I think what we're going to find is that it's going to be through something stranger yet, like, for instance, the RNA of octopi.
Question from John coming on Twitter here at #SpacedOutRadio. Dr. Lynn, have you ever studied the Druids? They were said to conduct human sacrifices, but that was also said to be a rumor from Julius Caesar, written after he conquered them and wanted to spread Christianity. What does the Ark record say?
Well, yeah, the archaeological record doesn't really have a lot on them, unfortunately, because they, as I was saying before, they were another example of a group of people that did not keep a written record. And so a lot of the written, well, actually most all of the written information that we have about the Druids come from pieces of, primary sources from other people like, the Romans. And so, and clearly then that is going to be biased, but you can still glean information from it. And so, but he's absolutely correct. A lot of the information is sort of secondhand, primary source, if that makes any sense. But, and so, when it comes to ideas of human sacrifice, it could very well have been a propaganda move. But at the same time, I don't know that I'd rule it out completely. But I do know that the Druids had a very, high rank. They were very well regarded and very respected in ancient, times. And so, they were religious leaders. That they were highly regarded. And so, I don't know how much of it would have been propaganda, and so that might be a little controversial to say. But we just don't have enough evidence in the archaeological record to say, oh yes, they did this, they did that. As the, questioner said, that most of the information comes from Roman sources, unfortunately.
Quick question from Jade as we got about 90 seconds. She's in the SOR Space Travelers Club. She is asking, Heather, have you ever been approached by the elites to work for them?
Indirectly, I would say I often get. It's never a direct. Hey, why don't you come over here and do this? And here's the contract. It's a lot of innuendo and approaching and wooing, for lack of a better term, and so. Yeah, I would just say yes. I would leave it at that. I get a lot of strange calls. I just had a strange call today. I get a lot of that. So yes, I do. I have been approached, just never with something as formal as some sort of contract or offer or anything like that. And I would never, accept that sort of thing anyway, because I don't need that drama. I think I'm doing enough as it is to make people angry. I think that's probably why I get that attention. I get a lot of people who contact me and think, oh, okay, well, if I can give you this disinfo, I get a lot of that as well. I get emails all the time from people from different countries, actually, and, different agendas that are maybe not even Illuminati, but just other agendas who try to plant and seed me with information. It's something you have to be very careful of. I really do love getting, emails and tips, and I appreciate whistleblowers, but it's something you really have to be careful of. You can't really cite whistleblowers, and you can't really trust everything unless you really vet them. And so, yeah, but yes, I've been approached, and I've looked into who those people were, and I found that, they were the real deal, and that again just fuels my interest in finding out more, because I see, oh my gosh, this is true? Wait, what? I have to look into this then even more, because, who knew?
Apparently it is. Apparently it is. Dr. Heather, I'm going to get you to hold on because we are through 2 hours on Spaced Out Radio. Dr. Heather Lynn will continue with Evil Archaeology here on Spaced Out Radio for another 30 minutes. Hour 3 of Spaced Out Radio coming up next.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
At spacedoutradio.com, we have a little bit of everything for you to stay up late. So while you're there, check out our SOR Newswire, where our team brings you stories of the weird and strange to the WTF from around the globe. News on Bigfoot, UFOs, paranormal, Darwinian-type crime tales. It's the stories that the mainstream media usually won't touch. Well, we got them all on the SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Come hang out with Spaced Out Radio where we own the night. This is Carl. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and during the show, use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio to chat with us live. On Instagram, at Dave Scott SOR. On Facebook, give our page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. SOR archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. Come join us, or I will come join you. See you at your window.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Canada's largest UFO conference is ready to roll in Toronto this September 21st and 22nd at the Alien Cosmic Expo. This year is about the experience. Listen to the stories of Dave Scott, Travis Walton, Paula Harris, Grant Cameron, Ryan Stacey, Richard Dolan, Leslie Mitchell-Clark, and more. Get your tickets now at aliencosmicexpo.com.
Hey fans, it's Dave Scott. Do I have something for you to check out? A great documentary about legendary Mexican investigative journalist Jaime Maussan and his search for the truth about UFOs. Beyond the Spectrum, Maussan's UFO files can be found on Amazon Prime. It's free to watch if you're a member. You might even hear me in it. So check out Beyond the Spectrum, only on Amazon Prime.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacy, head of the Research Association, TESA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you'll be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
On the first Tuesday of every month, I encourage you to come along for a journey with me, Geraldine Orozco, on The Spiritual You. Together, we will take a look at how to access the highest expression of yourself and change your life. Consciousness, ET contact, health, and wellness, we can talk about it all. So come along for a spiritual ride with me, Geraldine Orozco, on The Spiritual You, only on Spaced Out Radio.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
We are getting ready to relaunch the SOR Space Travelers Club at spacedoutradio.com. For $5 a month, you can join us for a plethora of features found nowhere else. Hang out in a private chat room during the show and after party. You can check out some exclusive content and a store specifically for you, as well as a private listener forum where you can post your thoughts, stories, and pictures. The SOR Space Travelers Club, coming soon to spacedoutradio.com.
Come get spooked at the 4th Annual Forest Moon Paracon in Cedar-Woolley, Washington, Saturday, September 28th. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot. Speakers include Mike Morin and Jason Jordan, R. Keith Andrews, and Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and so much more. There will be workshops and a VIP roundtable. Get early bird tickets now at fmparacon.com.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for being with us. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial stations. We're on UPRN 107.7 FM in New Orleans, KZFX 93.7 FM in Ridgecrest, California, WQEE 99.1 FM in Newnan, Georgia, KDUN AM 1030 in Reedsport, Oregon, and down in Dangerfield, Texas, we are on KDNF AM 1560. On the digital side, we are broadcasting live on Kingdom of Nye Radio and Revolution Radio. Great to have you with us. Don't forget, you can check out all of our archives for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Hysternopathia. Hysternopathia is your password. Nobody really knows what it means, but the clam, yes, the clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, you're looking for the news? Go to our website, spacedoutradio.com, to check out the SOR News Wire put together by Captain Shirk. We also have a plethora of features for you, so make sure you check them on out. For the final time tonight, we introduce our guest, Dr. Heather Lynn, who has been studying ancient archaeology for a number of years now. She's written a couple of great books, which can be found on our website, drheatherlynn.com. Heather, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio. Thank you so much for going the distance with us.
Oh, no, thank you. It's my pleasure. I love being here.
We are having a lot of fun. I want to get to a question from PBR in our chat room here. He is asking, on your latest book, why did you choose Pazuzu on the cover?
Well, it was the movie The Exorcist, actually. The beginning scene from the book and the movie are set. It's set in Iraq at an archaeological excavation at the site. For people who maybe don't remember so clearly, there is a priest archaeologist, and he feels this strong wind blow, and it's foreshadowing the arrival of the demon that would go on to possess the main character. And that demon was Pazuzu. It was the demon of the southwestern wind and bearer of storms and drought in Assyrian and Babylonian mythology. And so, that was interesting. As I said, I was raised Catholic, and I was told, "Hey, you can't watch that movie." But of course, we did watch that movie, and I think I saw it probably a little too young, and it was probably one of the scariest movies ever. And it just, it was one of my favorite horror movies, and I hadn't seen it in a number of years, and it was on, and it, I saw that scene, and it resonated with me. I hadn't really noticed it before because it had been so long since I had seen it. And so I thought, isn't that interesting? And the another movie, The Omen, also opens up with an archaeological excavation. And I thought that was interesting that these movies sort of tied a modern day occurrence of a possession to something so ancient, especially in that area. And so, it wasn't long after seeing that movie, and I just sort of had that in the back of my mind. I had read a news story that came, across the, interwebs, and it caused me to just really pause for a minute. It was a story about a man in North Carolina in 2014 who, he had been murdering and dismembering and cannibalizing his neighbors. And it was, a really awful story. This was in North Carolina. And his name was Pazuzu. And I read that and thought, wait, what? And it was legally Pazuzu. He changed his name from John Lawson to Pazuzu because he thought that, he was this worshiper of Pazuzu, a servant, an obedient slave. It was really just, obviously some crazy stuff. And he thought he was worshiping the demon in some kind of Sumerian religion that he invented that involved a monthly blood sacrifice, usually of a small animal, but then, of course, it graduated to humans. And it was really weird. And so it just got me thinking about, The Exorcist and the effects of the ideas of these ancient demons on people today. And, as I spoke earlier about the idea of being inspired, I thought about that word, and I thought about, doing something in the spirit of, if a murderer is doing something in the spirit of a demon, it might be splitting hairs over the semantics, but could it be something like a possession, or, and so I started looking into the connection of that. And so, and that story went on, it gets more gruesome, and he ended up, dying in prison before he even had his trial. They're not sure exactly how he died. He bled out in his cell. He had injuries all over his body. He had deep scratches on his chest and arm and head and rib fractures. And but it looked like he was trying to cut off his arm, and so he bled out after cutting his brachial artery. But they still couldn't definitively determine how he died. This was right after he, begged and begged to be allowed to worship this Pazuzu. And they said, no, you're in jail. Be quiet. Go to your cell, whatever. And he said, if I don't do this, though, the demon's going to kill me. The demon's going to kill me. And so sure enough, that 3 a.m, the guards in the prison in Raleigh found him in a pool of his own blood. And so it was really gruesome and really strange. And I think it really hit me too, because I went and I found the video that the sheriff's department had taken of the inside of his home, and it showed a really disturbing scene. There were Sumerian markings and occult symbols all over the walls and the ceilings, and there was this big cutout picture of Pazuzu and other Anunnaki pinned all over his wall. Filthy kitchen where he'd had the victims' bodies prepared for eating, and more demonic imagery everywhere, and it was just awful. And so it just stuck with me, and I thought, this is interesting. And why Pazuzu? And Pazuzu is an interesting case because there are so many Pazuzu amulets. It's one of the most popular demons of the time. And so and there's actually a reason for this. The Pazuzu was a protective force for women who were pregnant. It also, was known to, I guess, or believed to rather, protect infants from sudden infant death. And so for a woman to have a baby or be pregnant, she would carry a Pazuzu amulet or have a plaque by her bedside or, wear the necklace. And this was to protect her from the demon Lamashtu, who was the wife of Pazuzu, which is why then Pazuzu could, be a protective spirit, because only Pazuzu could control his wife. And so there's a lot of depictions of Pazuzu whipping his wife into submission after she's trying to steal, a person's baby, because apparently Lamashtu was barren and couldn't have children. So there's this whole narrative around it. And in those times, demons weren't necessarily evil. They were sort of both. It wasn't this idea of good versus evil necessarily. They had bad qualities and potentially good qualities that you could harness for your own purposes. And as such, Pazuzu was a very popular figure. And so I chose that for the cover for that reason. It was maybe a little bit of the, pardon the pun, but the inspiration for the book in a way. And plus he looked really spooky.
Well, I mean, hey, why not, right?
Right.
Anything to make a little bit of a statement. But on a serious note, it also gets into the occult. It also gets into some of the darker sides of the religion aspect of mankind's history. Where does the occult play in all of this?
Well, as in the occult, as in the exaltation of demons, or how do you mean
demons with controlling the history of man? Mm-hmm. I don't believe that people from Wicca or the Wiccan religion are bad in any way, as many people tend to believe them. But there are parts of society who will say, this is one of the reasons why we have so many problems, is so many people are not following Christ, and they're going in their own directions, believing in false gods and false energies and so on and so forth. And I'm just curious, as mankind moves forward and kind of more moves away from the church and moves more towards a spiritual path, do we see the effects from yesteryear playing into what we are seeing today?
I think to some extent, yes. I think that a lot of the sites and artifacts that I discuss in the book, though, they seem evil upon first impression. Like if you say, Wicca, or if you say witches, or, sometimes people can say, oh, that's occult, that's demonic. But if anyone's met, someone who practices that, religion, if you will, they're generally really, not evil people. They just love nature and they have a different way of believing. It's just, it's something completely different. So, I think that at first it may look like it, but if you study some of these things in greater detail, you find that they're not necessarily occult. In archaeology, one of the most important concepts is context, and that is the position of the artifact, of course, or site in time and space, and that includes how an archaeological find got there and what's happened to it since. And so it can just be really easy to focus on the sites and the relics and just to miss the broader relevance to the discovery, overall. And so I think context is important in that regard. And so I think the book really does look at human history and culture and shows that, the evil that we see in these things may actually be a reflection of the evil that we fear in our daily lives and fear about each other. That's not to suggest that some of these sites aren't really awful and mysterious, because there's a lot of them that are just, it's hard to fathom how they can even be. There's one in particular about a site in Germany that it's completely bizarre. It's in Herxheim, Germany. It was a Neolithic place that had a smaller population, but what they found was just a ton of bones from other people that through analysis, they found that they were not from that particular village, but they were outsiders, and they weren't necessarily unhealthy, or they were not just all like sacrificial victims. They were all sorts of people, healthy people, men, women, children, elderly. And what they found about these burial sites is that they had been cannibalized, and there wasn't even a distinction between, were they cut in pieces? Was this were they cannibalized? Because sometimes there's questions about that when you look at the way the bone is handled. Were they defleshing it for other reasons, maybe ritual? Not in this particular situation, because what they found were charred bones, particularly the vertebrae, where they had cooked them. They had big roasts, and they would take the marrow and eat that. And they were feasting, literal feasts on the people that would come into their village. And it happened only during the span of 50 years, and then it stopped. And they're still doing research on this site right now and finding more and more people. We're talking hundreds of people that they keep finding that were part of this. And so, situated in Germany, it is this small area where people lived once, and between about it was 5300 and 4950 BC, and they lived there, and anyone who came through, they ate them. They ate them and feasted, and it's we don't really know why. We really have no idea why. So it can seem definitely evil, but then there's just more questions than answers. And so when it comes to things like the occult, it's really easy to lump a lot of spooky things in, but there's so many factors here between mental illness and ritual sacrifices and just a different culture. So, for instance, I have a little bit on the frozen Inca mummies. These are terrible child sacrifices that happened, but again, we can look at that now and say this is terrible, but maybe in that context, they didn't really think that. I mean, it's really hard to judge those people in that context, in that past. I mean, we can judge it now, but, so it's a difficult subject. It's a difficult subject, and it's easy to paint with a broad brush and call it evil, because we look at it how it would fit into our world now. But what is evil? And I guess it really questions that. So, I do discuss witches in general and the whole idea of the witch trials and what happened with that. So, and yes, the occult definitely plays a part in this. But I think I basically in the book try to look at a broader context of it and see, everything from just haunted dolls and, spooky artifacts to, very gruesome archaeological discoveries, and mostly just questioning, why and why are we all so scared of these things, and what makes these things so scary? Because some of these demons don't look that scary. Like if you look at something like Pan, but that's Pan is where we get our image of the devil himself with right. Cloven hooves and that goat-like appearance. And so what makes him so scary? And so I identify those sorts of things in the book.
So in your opinion, then, where do demons come into play, fast forwarding to today's society, rather than from a historic folklore?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that most of it is historic folklore. The idea of the man being made in the image of God himself is kind of a popular theme through a lot of religions, particularly Abrahamic religions. And so what you'll see are demons that look like man and beast, and using animal-human hybrids and that sort of art. It kind of creates a what could be called a bestial perversion of God's image. And so in doing that, that's an ancient way of being sort of sacrilegious or heretical. And so therefore it can be scary. And so I think a lot of it's folklore until you get to the questions of the possession itself, the way people act these things out. And so, if you were to say, or do you believe in demons and do they look like Pazuzu? I would say probably not, because I think a lot of these demons that we see and depicted in art and culture are just manifestations of our creative, mind trying to anthropomorphize this other thing, and that other thing being the demonic influence that I believe, is very real. And I think that what that is, when I say demonic, I don't mean it from a particular religious perspective. Again, there's different ways of looking at it. It's just that idea of something wrong or counter the order of the universe. So, order versus chaos sort of thing. And so the chaotic element, the negative element, the dark forces, those are very real. And so I think those things, though, they don't necessarily have a physical body, but we try to anthropomorphize them using the folklore. However, a lot of the research I've done, especially with some of the information and the areas of the occult and, what you could call the Illuminati, that puts a different kind of spin on things altogether then. The idea that there are these otherworldly beings that maybe don't have some kind of anthropomorphized body. And what they do is they seek an avatar. They seek some kind of, almost like they're a parasite. So that, like the idea of possession. And what they're doing is they're working through us. And it sounds a little like, weird, but it's a theory that's been shared cross-culturally for millennia, ever since we could start, thinking of the idea of good and evil and the differences between the two. It's this idea that, I mentioned earlier in the show about, these beings that influence us in these ways. And I think that, you see a lot of people now who are summoning these beings, and you see the tech elites doing that now too. And so I think the words and the names and the images that we're giving, so we say the fairy, the clockwork elves, the demons, the whatever you want to call them, I think they're just names and depictions of the same thing. And that same thing is something that we just can't readily, explain or express or put our finger on. And so we're doing the best with what we can with our individual languages and artistic endeavors to explain a very true human experience that we have yet to completely look at honestly and figure out completely.
All right, let's get to a question from Donna as we have about 3.5 minutes left with you tonight. And she says, all religions are cults, but not all cults are religions. Why do so many people think that others' beliefs are evil then?
I love that. I love that statement, though. That's very interesting, and I think that's true. Why do people believe that others are evil? Is that the question? Is that how I understand it?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, so one religion is better than the other or not. I think that has a lot to do with the limitations of the human psyche. I don't know that there's this grand, reason other than we're limited individuals with limited psyches, and what we are programmed to be is tribal. And so if you even take out the idea of religion, instead of that, we have politics that are doing that. That's become a religion. We have, even if you're in a town, maybe it's a very sports-oriented town that can become cult-like or even religious. And when it's ramped up a lot, or when there's more at stake, when people attach a lot of personal meaning to it, it can sometimes then turn from being a simple unifying force to a dividing one. And I think that it really has less to do with the religions themselves, even though religions play a part in enhancing that or maybe throwing, fuel on the fire. I think it has more to do with the, limited way that humans still interact in the world. I think we're just tribal by origin and evolution. Hopefully, maybe we can evolve ourselves out of that by being, conscious about these things and truthful about these things, and try to override these primitive urges that, were once very important to have, but now maybe not as important and sometimes destructive as well.
We only got about 90 or so seconds left with you tonight. And I want to say a big thank you for coming on Spaced Out Radio for the first time. And it's definitely, if I have my way, not going to be the last. But then again, you kind of have the final say on that.
I'll come back whenever you want me. I love it. It's been a great show, and you're a very good host and awesome audience.
Well, it's the hair factor, right? It is totally the hair factor. And believe it or not, your hair in the chat rooms and on Twitter got a lot of compliments tonight.
Oh, well, thank you to anyone who said something nice. That's very nice of you. I appreciate that.
Could you please do me a favor?
Sure.
Take a minute here to let everybody know where they can find your books, your website, and any other social media contact.
Well, you can go to www.drheatherlynn.com, and that's where you can find pretty much everything about me and my books. My books are generally sold on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, wherever books are sold. My new book, Evil Archaeology, is available on Kindle, paperback, and actually audiobook as well. So you can go to my website, find the links for that, or you can go on Amazon, or you can go to the bookstore. I'm pretty much everywhere. Just definitely www.drheatherlynn.com. Sign up for my newsletter. You can get free books that only newsletter subscribers get, and those are very substantial books, and they hit on a lot of the topics we've discussed tonight. And you can email me at heather@drheatherlynn.com. I always answer my emails, even if it takes me a while to get back to you, but if you have anything to say, I love talking to everybody and hearing what you have to say and the questions that you have. I'm very approachable in that way. I'm also on Facebook. I don't know what that URL is right off the top of my head, but if you just look up Dr. Heather Lynn on Facebook, it'll come up. I have two profiles. One's a personal one. I hardly post on it, and one's just the regular one. So I'm on Twitter too, but I never really use it. To many people's dismay, I think, but it's at dr.drheatherlynn, or dr.heatherlynn, rather.
I think you should. Twitter's fun. Dr. Heather Lynn, thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Coming up next, we have the SOR Newswire and the Thought of the Dave, so stay tuned.
Coming soon to our website, spacedoutradio.com, is the SOR Space Travelers Club. For just $5 a month, you can get into a private area on our site where you can hang with other listeners in our chat room, post in our forum, and check out a bunch of exclusive content and store that won't be found anywhere else, including a nightly after-show party with Dave. It's going to be the best $5 a month you're going to spend. The SOR Space Travelers, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacy, head of the Research Association, TESA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you'll be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot THAL, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Hey, Spaced Out Radio listeners, it's Dave Scott. I want you to check out a great documentary I'm involved in called Beyond the Spectrum, Mosson's UFO Files. Directed by Darcy Weir, the film follows Jaime Mosson's journey for mainstream journalistic truth in ufology in Mexico. Beyond the Spectrum can be found on Amazon Prime. If you're a member, watch it free. It's worth the watch. Come get spooked at the 4th Annual Forest Moon Paracon in Cedar-Woolley, Washington, Saturday, September 28th. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot. Speakers include Mike Morin and Jason Jordan, R. Keith Andrews, and Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and so much more. There will be workshops and a VIP roundtable. Get early bird tickets now at fmparacon.com.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for a night on the town? The Moose Vancouver is the bar that never stops rocking until 2 a.m. every night. The Moose has great food with everything on the menu from $6.95 to $8.95. Fantastic, vibrant staff and rock and roll that will bring you back to when the music was real, the hair was long, and the guitars were rocking. Get your party on at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch. Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Coming up this September 21st and 22nd, all UFO eyes will be focused on Toronto for the 4th Annual Alien Cosmic Expo. Come listen to some of the biggest names and experiencers in ufology. Travis Walton, Paul Hellyer, Richard Dolan, Paula Harris, Grant Cameron, Randy Kramer, and Spaced Out Radio's own Dave Scott. Tickets are on sale now at aliencosmicexpo.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Every night on Spaced Out Radio, we have places for you to hang out. Hi, this is Carl. Join our SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook for live chat. On Twitter, using hashtag Spaced Out Radio. You can also join us in our Spreaker chat room. Check us out on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR. All of our archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. By the way, I'll be watching you at your window until you do. Bye!
Looking for the stories of the strange and weird that you will find hard to find anywhere else? Check out the SOR Newswire on our website. Our writers, led by Captain Shirk, are scouring the world for the oddest and most bizarre stories we can find. Everything from weird crime to suspenseful and paranormal. We're working hard for you to bring you the most intriguing news of your day. Check out the SOR Newswire at spacedoutradio.com today.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for showing on up tonight. Reminder, if you've missed most of this show or others, you can always go to our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. And of course, our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we got a plethora of features for you, including Captain Shirk making daily updates to our SOR Newswire. Speaking of the SOR Newswire, let's get to it. The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire at the back end of every show, where we get to The weird, the strange, and the sometimes just plain odd stories of the night. We're starting off in Montreal, Quebec. Global Montreal, part of the Global News Network here in Canada. Well, their social media person may be in a little bit of hot water. You see, they posted a story today about a study that talks about gun ownership. And the headline was, the more gun ownership, the more mass shootings. That isn't rocket science, according to a study. Problem was, whoever was posting the story decided to post this as well. Guns only exist to kill. That's why they were invented. Gun lovers can F off, but spelled the word out. Yeah. Gun lovers can F off. Get your thrills doing something else. Now, there's more than 2.3 million Canadians who own firearms in Canada, and they are going absolutely haywire on Global Montreal's page about this. To date, as this story is only, I'm going to say 4 hours old, maybe 5 hours old, there has been more than a couple hundred comments, which is a lot up here in Canada. I know down in the States and elsewhere, you're used to tens of thousands of comments. But the bigger issue isn't the story. It is the way they have insulted Canadians. One person named Lionel wrote, "Hey, Global, an apology is in order to the 2.3 million legal gun owners you insulted. You knew you were wrong and edited the caption. Telling 2.3 million gun owners to F off isn't very professional. Plus, you went against your own rules by not keeping the post clean. CRTC, which stands for Canadian Radio Television Commission, is going to love this one." Global, a few hours later, changed the headline, which now reads, "Research shows that high gun ownership has a close relationship to public mass shootings, far stronger than a country's homicide or suicide rates." The funny part about it is they put a picture of handguns. Now, in Canada, handguns are a prohibited weapon, which means you have to have a prohibited weapons license. And you have to qualify very strictly for that. Canada is known to have some of the strictest gun rules in the world. And let's just say there are a lot of people not happy with Global News right now. Here's a strange one. A rabid bat attack happened in Oregon on a tourist over the weekend, which prompted public health officials in the state to warn residents of the encounter southeast of Salem. Oregon State University confirmed the silver-haired bat had rabies after the victim captured it near Brighton Bush. The unincorporated area encompasses the Willamette National Forest and includes a hot springs. Our recommendation, says Marion County Health Department, is that they should not touch or handle bats, particularly if they're out during the daylight hours or on the ground. They are probably sick. The tourist was able to capture the bat. Officials recommend attempting to capture bats for testing if bitten. The bat was the fourth to test positive for rabies in the state this year. Rabies symptoms include irritability, aggressiveness, confusion, weakness, and nausea. Moving on here. All right. It could be a spooky preview of Earth's fate in the future. Why? Some dead planets are broadcasting radio waves long after their demise, and scientists are hoping to tune into the strange zombie sounds. Yeah, apparently, they're like MTV. Remember when they used to play music? Anyways, moving on. The planets, which have been stripped to their cores by the stars they orbit, can form a circuit with the star that has destroyed them, creating radio waves that can be picked up on Earth. New research published in the monthly notices of the Royal Astronomical Society explains. In an incredibly violent process, when some stars reach the end of their lifespan, they can expand and burn all nearby planets, leaving them as orbiting metallic cores before shedding their outer layers and turning into a white dwarf. The white dwarf and the remaining cores of its surrounding planets can then form a circuit to start emitting radio waves, as radiation emitted from the circuit can be picked up by radio telescopes on Earth. Now, scientists plan to find these communicating dead planets by detecting their zombie signals, which would be an exciting breakthrough, as no one has found a major planet or its core just by monitoring magnetic signatures. Interesting. All right. If you like spiders, great. If you don't go to Colorado in the next few weeks. Yeah, thousands of tarantulas are set to emerge for their annual migration. From around late August, the hairy brown and black spiders appear in La Junta in the Otero County, southeast Colorado, looking for mates. These male Oklahoma brown tarantulas will be looking for females who tend to stay put by their burrows. Yeah, that's according to Whitney Cranshaw, professor of entomology in Colorado State University. In fact, apart from the migration period, these homebody spiders stay in their burrows for their entire lives. To mate, the male tarantula spins a web where he leaves his sperm and copulates with appendages near his mouth. He then dashes off in case the female devours him. Oh, who hasn't had that happen at about 2 a.m. after the bar is closed? Anyways, next, females bind the sperm and egg into a cocoon. 6 to 9 weeks later, up to 1,000 babies will hatch. As cultivation of the land destroys their habitats, the burrows are located on prairies. These silk-reinforced homes can measure up to a foot deep. There, the arachnids wait for insects like scarab and ground beetles to pass at night before attacking and injecting them with their venom. The male tarantulas, since they're now on their way home or to find another harem, when they reach about 8 years old, they gang up in groups and set out using their senses to touch and vibration to locate the females. Well, same as the bar. Spiders, single humans, pretty much the same way. Paula Cushing, a biologist at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, told the media that the males heading to Colorado will be about 10 years old. On average, female tarantulas can live for up to 30 years, while the males have a lifespan of up to 12 years, grow between 4.5 to 11 inches, and weigh in between 1 and 3 ounces. Those who wish to see the phenomena firsthand have the best chance in September, probably around the 10th, 11th in there, but you can still spot the insects in October. Head out on a warm, windy, free day in late afternoon around 5:45 to 6 p.m. for about an hour, and you can see as many tarantulas as you wish. I don't like spiders. I ain't doing it. Let's head over to Japan, where they are resuming efforts to disperse a buildup of contaminated water at Tokyo Electric Power's wrecked Fukushima nuclear plant that is stalling progress on the cleanup of the site. A panel of experts will meet this weekend for the first time in 8 months to consider options to get rid of the water. Japan's government said in briefing documents it released, the panel will consider strategies such as evaporation of the water and ejection deep underground, in addition to recommendation by Japan's nuclear regulator to release the treated water into the ocean. Oh, that's a great idea. A more conventional technique. Yeah, so let's just say, hey, it wasn't us, but we'll poison the rest of the water and the rest of the mammals and fish and crustaceans in it. Good job, Japan. Regular meetings of the panel had stopped nearly 3 months ago after Tokyo Electric admitted it had not managed to completely remove potentially dangerous radioactive particles from treated water held in tanks. The admission had been set back for the company and the government as the water hampered the cleanup of the site, where 3 reactors melted down after an earthquake and tsunami in 2011, the world's worst nuclear disaster since Chernobyl in 1986. In 2016, the Japanese government estimated that the total cost of plant dismantling, decontamination of affected areas, and compensation would be around 21.5 trillion yen, which equates to about $203 billion American, or about a fifth of the country's annual budget. Tokyo won the bid to host the 2020 Summer Olympics around 6 years ago, with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe declaring that Fukushima was under control in the in his final pitch to the International Olympic Committee. At nuclear sites around the world, contamination and contaminated water is treated to remove all radioactive particles except tritium? Tritium? Is that what it's called? Or tritium? A relatively harmless isotope of hydrogen, hard to separate from water and released into the environment. Because such missteps as last year's admission that it had not removed everything except tritium from the tanks, TEPCO faces difficulties winning the trust of regional fishermen who oppose the water's release into the ocean. All right. A driver in Biddeford, Maine, recently captured a feel-good moment on camera after traffic stopped for a long line of ducks crossing the road, followed by another really long line of ducks, followed by 2 dawdlers. Proof that there are more good people in this world than bad, the comment said. Not one person in the 2 lines of traffic were beeping or impatient for these guys. Even the last 2 stragglers, Karen Ramono wrote on her Facebook page. Yeah, lots of ducks. It's kind of cute, actually. Probably 50 or 60 each group. Kind of cool. All right, moving on. Final story of the night. As we all have been talking about, the raiding of Area 51, getting ready for the storm is a little alien in Rachel, Nevada. Owner Connie West said, "Last night was the first night I've slept since July 11th. The small inn, originally opened by Connie's parents in August of 1988, has been caught up in the viral Storm Area 51 campaign, which started as a Facebook event calling for the curious Americans to come together and storm the facility and finally see them aliens. Currently, the Area 51 Facebook event planned for September 20th has over 2 million people pledged as going, 1.4 million as interested. Connie, who runs the Little Alien with her mother Pat in town of only 54 permanent residents, says that although these popular weekends they have seen, nothing can compare to the recent wave of interest. Weekends book up sporadically, skywatchers, conventions, groups who want to bring their families out there. If it was hunting season or a UFO conference, then all the rooms would be booked up, but not like this." She says, "I've stopped counting after 1,800 missed phone calls in only a 3-day period." Now, Area 51 is 45 miles outside of Rachel. Connie says the Quirky Inn is the closest business, open to the public, to the government facility, which some believe to contain evidence of UFOs and extraterrestrial life. She says, "We are literally busier than ever right now," also saying she did not anticipate the large interest when she came across the Facebook post. She goes on to say, "Someone shared it with me, and I think I responded, 'haha, good luck,' or something like that, and then just really kind of put it out of my brain." Of course, everyone was sharing it. Then literally, July 11th, my mom was leaving to travel to San Francisco to get on her Alaskan cruise, and before she got out of cell service, our phone started ringing around 8:30 in the morning and never stopped. When asked how many people have tried to score a coveted spot at the small motel, she said, "We're booked," after missing 1,800 phone calls. Yeah, there's only 10 rooms, 8 RV spots, various dry camping plots, and yes, it is all booked up for those planning to storm. Thought of the Day happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, then read your responses on the air because, well, we love the audience participation around here. That's what we do. Today's Thought of the Day is as follows. What's your thoughts on Ancient Aliens? Not the television show. Give me some details, shall we? Yeah, let's check into this. We got some really good answers tonight. Very good answers. Let's get to them. All right. Kay Stockton on Twitter. "Oh, you mean old people like me, Dave?" No, I was saying ancient aliens, not the elderly. Lon Strickler, former guest. Lots of people scoff at it, but I believe there are a few interesting possibilities. Eric, the Watchers, angels, spirit beings, created beings sent to Earth to oversee it. They rebelled against their creator and are now a bond to this realm. Joe, they are the original architects of great beards, stashes, and hair. Oh, yes. Very strong comment there, Joe. Taro, my wife and myself believe so. We know of what, a couple thousand years? The universe is how old? Oh, they've been here. David, I think the TV show is mostly accurate in surmising the possible connections that ETs have had to Earth cultures in the distant past. Their theory is undebunkable. They've presented thousands of data points. Skeptics have to refute every last one to dismiss it, and they can't. Thought Shifter. Fact. Way to break that one down for us. Checksum. Based in Australia now. Not sure what that means, but it's what had happened. William, the whole seeding theory is interesting. Graham, Dave, my good friend, it is true that they're old in terms of history and their races, but I know only the lion men would walk upright. As a rule, they made to avoid the Zerdian Greys, a spy race, a race that conducts experiments on civilizations and civilians and work to stop these Greys. All right, a couple parts here from A51. I mean, there are so many ways to go with that. I at my core, believe that the past we were more advanced and probably interacted with races for that reason. If you'd like to hear a couple of my own original ancient alien theories, then just let me know, but I feel they are all as long shots as the show. Gahopper, they mess with our old world, now they might be doing it again. Rock Doc, scientifically seems highly unlikely. The most relevant is a light year distance needed to travel, and in our limited knowledge of matter, gravity, and time. Very interesting. Very interesting. All right, let's move on. Jeanette, in my book, should come out in late September. Well, that tells me nothing for the answer. Nothing. I'm going to delete that comment. Sylvia, totally believe. Jesus Christ, superstar baby. Lisa, for me personally, after Roman Catholic schooling as a child, the ancient astronaut theory makes more sense than anything I've ever read or been taught before. Look at us humans. Why haven't all the other apes evolved like us? Questions like this got me in trouble at school, and even worse when I questioned the Bible. Genetic science is slowly and gradually revealing the secrets of our distant past. I would like to be around when or if the answers finally come, but I doubt that will happen. I can only go with what makes sense to me now. Lewis, it's a no-brainer to me. The powerful, or better yet, the ones who crave power, need the majority to be dumbed down. Robert, who built the pyramids? Robin, what exactly are ancient aliens? They may not be ancient at all. I think leave artifacts behind and what has been found in Sumerians, Mayans, and Egyptians in their own writings to help find them. Why do you think they keep visiting us? Reverend Keith gets the final word here. If we were talking about biological beings that live on another planet in our universe and traveled to Earth in the past, I find no convincing evidence. If we were talking about entities from other realities or realms, I believe they have been here as long as mankind. This is my biblical understanding. Depends on the definition of alien. Thank you to everybody who participated in today's Thought of the Day. We will do it again tomorrow on our Facebook page as well as on Twitter. So make sure you check that out. Big thank you to Captain Shirk for getting all the news together for the SOR Newswire, which can be found at spacedoutradio.com. And a bigger shout out to Dr. Heather Lynn for coming in tonight for the first time talking about evil archaeology. We're going to do that again. I had a lot of fun with her. I think you guys did too. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everyone listening in at home, in your cars, at work, in our chat rooms, on Spreaker, Revolution Radio, LGAB. Thanks, Bardell. Owe you one. On Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, the SOR Space Travelers Club. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for sharing your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Good night, everybody.